discrimination, and different job titles for the same or similar occupations. And there could be also indirect discrimination that can result in a gender pay gap. Gender undervaluation of the skills, competencies, and responsibility associated with female jobs, gender bias in job evaluation methods, gender bias in job classification and job grading systems, and gender bias in job remuneration systems. Just to share also the definition of discrimination, it is mentioned in the convention of the ILO number 111, which aims to eliminate discrimination in the world of work. So according to this convention is like international law, international standard. Discrimination is defined as any distinction, exclusion, or preference. So that's the action made on the basis of number of grounds, including race, color, sex, religion, political opinion, national extraction, or social origin, which has the effect of nullifying or impairing equality of opportunity or treatment in employment and occupation. So when we talk about kind of bias and discrimination that can cause difference in pay to women and men, I think sometimes we can see examples how some job titles are different for women and men, although the contents of the job, responsibilities or efforts, they may be similar. So like in case of, men are occupying certain jobs, they may be called as salesmen, whereas for women, it may be called as shop assistant. So kind of giving the impression that woman is like assistant position, therefore kind of also establishing lower pay scale. For men, maybe assistant manager, or female jobs, manager's assistant. For men, it may be called technicians, and a female job may be called operator, or information manager for men, or a librarian. So these are examples, and you may be able to find also more examples specific to India. But when we look around the world of work, I think there are examples where women and men are carrying similar work, but they have different job titles, where men's job titles have like higher pay scale. So that's, examples where gender pay gap is generated. And I think we are also often overlooking, the society is overlooking based on gender bias, some characteristics that should be maybe valued, but not valued enough in women's work in terms of knowledge, skills, physical, emotional demands, responsibility, and working conditions. So just to give examples of, for example, kind of bias we have, I think it is pretty common for workers in the construction sector to, pay differently to women and men, having women as kind of assistants, whereas men as like main worker. And then often they may say justification as that, women are physically weaker. They are not able to like lift heavy things, therefore they are receiving less pay. But then when we also look at occupations like nurses, personal assistants, domestic worker, elderly care workers, they actually also work and sometimes lift the patients who are heavy. So it involves also physical strength, but that are often not recognized. And then the part of, women doing the care work is only kind of looked into as kind of natural extension of women's kind of ability. And then full work responsibility or efforts carried out by women are not adequately recognized. So do we have, national or international law on equal pay? So at the international level, we have Equal Remuneration Convention, supplemented by Equal Remuneration Recommendation, adopted in 1955. So they are international kind of standards, guidelines, providing guidance to countries to promote equal pay, address discrimination, because they recognize that in the world of work, women are discriminated against when it comes to pay for doing the same job, but also for doing different jobs, but of equal value. And this convention, of course, adopted in 1951, so that's after the World War II. And then it was at the time when a lot of women started working as frontline workers or in factories, and women were really, seeing the discrimination, getting paid less because they were just women. So really advocating for equal pay was an important effort made by, world leaders back then to advance gender equality in the world of work. So this convention was ratified by India in 1958. So what do we mean by ratified by India in 1958? So ILO has member states. So obviously India is also a member state. And when member states, country ratifies the convention, it means they express commitment to improve national laws and practice in line with international convention to, ensure and promote equal remuneration for men and women for work of equal value. So that means, India has expressed commitment and has national laws and policy in place. And of course, I think with labor law revision, I think Equal Remuneration Act is now part of the labor codes, but India has Equal Remuneration Act that promotes equal pay for same or similar work. So again, this Convention C-100 on equal pay covers equal pay for equal work. So men and women receive equal pay for the same or similar work, but also it covers equal pay for work of equal value. Men and women receive equal pay for different jobs that are of equal value. So this convention was really, is very relevant, although it was, adopted back in 1950s, because it recognized the reality that not always that women and men are doing the same job. In reality, women and men are in different occupations, and then where women are dominating the occupation, often, pay is kind of undervalued. So the convention recognized that phenomenon and then works to address discrimination in pay. So let's look at the concepts of equal value. So equal value refers to equal or identical work or work in equal or identical conditions, and different kinds of work which based on objective criteria or of equal value. Comparison between jobs is not limited to the same job, the same employer, or the same sector. And then equal remuneration refers to rates of remuneration established without discrimination based on sex. So equal remuneration, what is it? So of course it covers basic, ordinary, or minimum wage or salary, and also any other additional emoluments that are paid directly or indirectly by the employer in cash or in kind, arising out of the worker's employment. So what are additional emoluments? So they include, of course, wage differentials or increments based on marital status. And they can include different allowances like housing allowance, lunch allowance, transport allowance, family allowance, and benefits, so all kinds of emoluments associated with the employment. So when we promote equal pay, we're not just looking at basic pay, but we are also looking at all these employment related benefits, emoluments. So Convention 100 requires states to promote and ensure equal pay for work of equal value in cooperation with employers, workers, organizations. How? By having national laws or regulations, and also having establishing machinery for wage determination. It can also be done through collective agreements between employers and workers, or it could be a combination of these various means mentioned. And also government or employers can carry out exercise like objective appraisal of jobs to understand kind of the value of jobs, to make sure that the pay scale are established without bias in an objective way. So when we look at the kind of jobs in objective way, we need to look at various factors like qualifications, effort, responsibility, and working conditions. So in order to promote equal pay, ILO has a number of guidelines like Equal Pay Guide on the website, and also a guideline for carrying out evaluation, job evaluation at the enterprise level. So they can be accessed online. And then ILO together with UN Women and OECD also established Equal Pay International Coalition that works to promote equal pay, advance progress in realizing equal pay by sharing knowledge, by organized conferences, and then also communicating good practices or carrying out advocacy campaigns. So these are some of the initiatives done by kind of international level. And then there was a video of the equal pay, so I wanted to show you.
Gender pay gaps stubbornly persist. At present, across the world, women earn around 20% less than men on average per month.
One of the most effective ways to reduce the gender pay gap is to promote equal pay for work of equal value.
We can't see the video.
Yes.
The video is not visible to us. Can you reshare your screen?
Yeah. Let me
Thank you.
change this. Thank you. Thank you for alerting me.
Yeah, we can, because this was only audio, not video.
Okay.
It was only commentary. Yeah, that's.
Gender pay gaps stubbornly persist. At present, across the world, women earn around 20% less than men on average per month.
One of the most effective ways to reduce the gender pay gap is to promote equal pay for work of equal value, as provided for under the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically 5 and 8.5 of the 2030 Agenda.
Reducing the gender pay gap is not impossible.
All over the world, countries, companies and workers are pioneering new and innovative solutions.
legislation providing the right to equal pay for work of equal value.
Requiring companies to publish their gender pay gap data publicly.
There are free online pay calculators and other tools which determine the portion of discrimination of the gender pay gap.
Companies that apply equal pay can be certified.
Minimum wage policies and collective bargaining agreements that include equal pay clauses.
What is clear is that no one-size solution can fit all, and that no single actor can solve the challenge of equal pay alone.
The Equal Pay International Coalition, EPIC, is a collective effort to accelerate progress in closing the gender pay gap by 2030.
Governments, companies, civil society, academia, employers, and workers' organizations can join and contribute to making a change.
EPIC provides a platform for peer-to-peer exchanges, knowledge sharing of data and tools. It encourages countries to adopt progressive policies towards gender equality, thus reducing the pay gap.
Bring your expertise, knowledge, commitment, and make a change towards societies that value women and men's work equally.
Learn more about EPIC and sign up to be part of the solution.
So I have shared the video, and then so far I have shared the also kind of key concepts, and also the fact that we have international labor standards addressing equal pay, and how gender pay gap is often caused by discrimination and also kind of bias, gender bias. So when we look around, we can see also the phenomenon of where women's work is undervalued. So for example, in India, Anganwadi workers, they are not recognized as workers. And then they do very important essential work. But then they are not recognized as workers. And then there is also childcare workers who are mostly volunteers. Whereas we don't see many, men occupying these volunteer jobs or jobs that are not very recognized as work. And also when we look at the system of minimum wage in India, minimum wage system doesn't discriminate women, doesn't do direct discrimination saying women should be paid less. But if we look at the minimum wage for domestic workers, mostly occupied by women, and security guards, mostly occupied by men. For example, women's minimum wage, like domestic workers' minimum wage is always much lower than men. And in case of Assam, it is 44% lower than minimum wage set by security guards. So it is really important for us to be aware of these unfair situations in society and work to address these unfair situations and equality so that we can contribute to better development, inclusive development, where when women work, they are also paid fairly to contribute to children's education, their own growth, etc. While rather than they continue to work without any pay or without any benefits, which put risk of more poverty or child labor. So as I think many of you listening today will be the leaders in the future. So I hope you can remember some of the kind of key points from today's presentation to kind of utilize it in your future work. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Maya. I think I'll invite Madhvilal to just tell us what is the reality, what is the ground zero reality, and stimulate a little bit discussion. Should we have some more questions in chat box? Madhvi, please.
Thanks, Alka, and thanks, Aya, for covering so much in a very sort of succinct way. You shared the journey of this initiative. Really, I always say, in many forums that we have centuries of gender inequity to correct. And it's good to see the great progress that has been made. It's always good to recap what's happened. I think we just need to accelerate the work in progress, and to see a lot more impact, because I think the pace of change, I think, needs to be up. And I think the data you shared around the fact that the gender pay gap has actually increased during the pandemic is really concerning and worrying, because it's like we moved a little forward and then we stepped back. So that kind of is worrisome and something we should look at, really. And of course, any discrimination that arises out of any bias, whether it's gender, color, sexual orientation, definitely needs to be addressed. And I think I love the video that you shared. There's so many actions in place, but I think it's lots of work to be done across levels: society, the legislature, corporate level, and of course, individual organization level, and societal level as well. Really. So I think I'm pleased to share that progressive organizations have actually started doing a lot of things to address the same, and I think when I started working, which was 30 years ago, didn't really see much of that. So for me, I've seen over the last 10 years, tremendous progress has been made by organizations, to correct this pay gap. I'll just share a couple of examples. One is, of course, companies do conduct a year-end review when they look at, doing their annual increments to see whether there are any gaps that are standing out in terms of a gender pay gap. And of course, these are addressed very, very quickly and not allowed to perpetuate. So that's one clear action that happens in progressive organizations. I think the other example, and I think probably you're looking at the whole society and I'm talking about just the corporate sector, right? Another example is that, for example, when we go to campus for hiring, we don't discriminate based on gender. So if we go to hire, say, management graduates from, say, XLRI, we would not say, oh, because he's a guy, we would pay him more. That doesn't happen. They get hired at the same level. So, but that's really, I guess, a very smaller percentage of the people that, you're talking about. So I think in the organized sector, a lot has been done. And companies are really, really ahead on a lot of things. But I think if we can ensure that progress is made in other sectors, and I think you talked about some of the really, the sort of the junior sectors and the smaller sectors, but there are sectors in between as well where a lot of work has to be done. And I think the work that you're doing is commendable. Even the organization that you work with is commendable. And I think if you can let us know, so we have this, Alka would have briefed you. XLRI hosts a Center for Gender Equality and Inclusion. If there is something that we can partner with you, please let us know. We'd be happy to support, because our objective is to bring around equality of all genders, really. So I want to thank you. And I'm going to hand back to Alka for the questions we can take, on which come through.
Thank you so much, Madhvi, for giving the ground zero. What is the reality there and how? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Now I'll invite our team, IDEA team. Please take over and take the questions from the chat box.
Thank you, ma'am. So on behalf of everyone present here, we would like to thank you for the insightful session. And we have compiled some of the questions that some of the attendees sent us. To begin with, can you please tell us how does a country's ethnicity factors into the wage gap?
Ethnicities, did you say?
So how does a person's ethnicity or his demographic background affect the whole discussion about wage gap? Do we see some kind of deviation amongst people in the same country?
I don't know the data. I mean, specific for India or different countries. The Equal Pay Coalition is, focused on women and men. But there are data showing, for example, in the United States, people like Black people are paid less than, white people, things like that. that should also not be the case. So it is really important to for country to collect data and identify gaps so that countries can, take action. So this is not only for, women and men. We should promote, equal pay for work of equal value for everyone, for people with disabilities, people coming from different backgrounds, people living with HIV/AIDS, etc. It is important to collect data, monitor data, and then in case you feel like there is a possible discrimination, it is good to investigate.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So there was another question that came in the chat box from Mr. Shekhar, and he wants to ask that how do we deal with and how do we connect the idea of equal pay for equal work with the unpaid care work that's done by women, since it mostly goes unrecognized?
Yeah, so unpaid care work is important element that needs to be addressed if we want to achieve gender equality. So many countries, of course, have been working to advance gender equality, and a lot of countries have made progress in terms of promoting girls' education. So mostly I think there's universal education for girls and boys for primary education. And there's special programs like skills development for women or enterprise development training for women entrepreneurs, etc. So even after that, after achieving kind of parity in education, we are seeing still gaps in women's labor force participation, and also for women to enjoy decent work in comparison to men. So we can see that women married with children, they also receive less pay compared to women who are not married and who don't have children, and men who have children and who also don't have children. And there is also a kind of penalty for women with children when it comes to representation in management level. So this data shows that unpaid care work is really an important issue that we need to tackle if we want to achieve gender equality in the world of work. So what we are saying is that we need to promote better sharing of unpaid care responsibilities, household responsibilities, by women and men at the household level, but also at the kind of institutional level by states. For example, childcare is still, I think, left as mostly women's responsibilities. And also there is kind of limited attention by the kind of by the government, or I mean, there is attention by the government on the need for childcare, but then when we look at the working condition of childcare workers, they are not recognized as workers. So while there is a recognition that childcare is important for kids to have a healthy growth and development, there is less attention to workers engaged in childcare, because kind of the assumption is that childcare is like, it's not a work, it's women's responsibility. So again, there are many women workers who have been working under, for example, the National Creche Scheme, and they've been maybe working for over 40 years as childcare workers, but then their pay is about 3,000 rupees per month currently, working for full-time. So that means, they don't have access to decent work. They can't have a really decent livelihood. They don't have access to social protection, access to medical facilities, no access to pension. So despite this work, they're not able to, have a protection as workers. So really, there is a stronger need to, address unpaid care work by the government, by enterprises, and by workers, by promoting better sharing of household responsibilities by women and men, boys and girls, but also implementing measures so that women and men workers can work better by balancing household responsibilities, like introducing flexible work arrangement, introducing not only maternity leave, but paternity leave, because maternity leave is needed because women have this biological function to deliver baby, but it is good to promote men's engagement in childcare. And for that, introduction of paternity leave is also very important. So many countries are also promoting paternity leave in addition to maternity leave. And it is important to promote a decent work for workers in the care economy, like childcare workers, domestic workers, healthcare workers, and workers in like primary education, like early childhood care and primary education teachers, because they are also undervalued and underpaid. So there are multiple issues to be addressed on the care work. So unpaid care work is very much related in our journey to promote gender equality in the world of work.
Thank you, ma'am. So another question was, one might think that the wage gap in developed country would be lower as compared to the ones in developing country, but that is unfortunately not the case. So what could be the reason for this? And is it do you think that it is the responsibility of developed countries to lead? And if so, how can they do it?
I think it is really a responsibility of everyone, whether developed or less developed. And many countries have initiated work like stronger actions. So I think different countries can learn from each other on how we can advance. So actually also when we look at the law in India, it talks about equal pay for similar or same work. So that doesn't really cover equal pay for work of equal value. So, it is important to, improve the kind of national law in line with this international convention, and also take proactive measures in addressing. Maybe we don't have too many actions in this area in India, although the data is available to show kind of gender pay gap, but more could be done by introducing some measures, like, for example, encouraging enterprises to carry out objective job evaluation, or requiring enterprises to carry that and then report the findings before they can apply for, let's say, government funding or stimulus package or etc. So it is really a kind of agenda for all of us, because the gender pay gap continue to exist and we need to advance the progress. So whether you are in advanced countries or less advanced countries, yeah, we need to accelerate action.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this answer. There's another question which comes from Shobna, ma'am. She wants to know, what do you think are some of the psychological factors that inhibit women from being much more bolder in their demand for remuneration when they're as qualified as men and others? And has this inherent reticence been addressed by the ILO in its recommendations on wage parity?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, but my guess is that because of how we are brought up, maybe young generation nowadays, they receive more kind of gender equal messages. So they don't grow up to live up to certain expectations, like you have to be obedient woman or you have to be bold man. But then, of course, how we brought up maybe your parents told you, you know, certain messages, or society told you, like, and then maybe even society, even if your parents didn't, you know, tell you, maybe society, there were messages like telling women to act in certain way, or punishing women who didn't act in certain way to meet the expectation of the society. I think these things are, you know, I think important factor affecting, you know, women and men to behave in certain ways. And then, yeah, demand for remuneration. So when, I think in reality, when women demand for remuneration, maybe it is not seen as a positive trait of women, while men, when men do it, they're seen as, oh yes, this man is very confident and, you know, trustable, therefore we can. So I've heard of also, you know, women workers who needed to navigate these kind of situations, because if they act like men, then they are kind of penalized because they don't fit the stereotype of good woman. So of course, how we are brought up affect us. So I think we really need to kind of be strategic in asking for kind of demanding, although we need to demand, but then people are also, you know, don't want to create scene, and they don't want to be seen as cooperative, you know, worker, etc. So I can see it's tricky. But anyway, I think also it is good to, what I heard from some kind of seniors as a good example is that it is good to fight for these issues for your kind of subordinates, and not to bring as your kind of own issues. Then you can also, you know, be successful in addressing some of the injustice in the world of work. And that can also create a better environment for future workers. And another thing is also to create alliance with co-workers or other women, exchange experience to approach these issues.
One last question, please. After that, we'll start closing.
Okay, ma'am. So we've received some questions along the lines of this following one. Since hints of patriarchy still exist in the society, do you think we can achieve our goal of equal pay?
Yeah, we need to. We need to. I mean, changing social norms is very difficult and it takes time. So we need a continuous messaging by all levels of leaders, and also from enterprise leaders, and also from leaders in educational area. And slowly we can change. Change is possible, because this is a social ideas, and this is not biological or things that we cannot change. So I think by explaining, you know, what's fair and how positive changes can also bring positive changes to both women and men, I think we can slowly change it.
I think, as I had promised Aya, that we will close the program approximately 60 minutes. So we are getting 60 minutes. And just one thing, last question, which was asked, I think I would like to add one point, that I think Iceland is the only country in the world which has made that any company which has more than 25 employees, then they have to apply this formula of equal pay for equal women. The only country in the world. And still, I think they are 82%, they have reached that. It's working, but 100%, it's also not there, despite that they have this law in the country. Aya, thank you very much. Father, are you there? Father? Father Kasmin, are you there?
I'm here.
Yes, please. I think
Go on,
like
go
yeah.
on. Yeah.
We would like to thank Aya for the please.
Hello.
Yes, Father, would you like to give a vote of thanks to Aya, please?
I suggest that you propose your vote of thanks since we welcomed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Father. Aya, it has been a great pleasure that you were able to join us. Did I hear correct, Father? Because my internet is a little bit unstable right now.
Pardon me?
Hello?
Yeah.
Did I hear?
Yeah. There seems to be some lag.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Is Madhvi,
Yeah.
are you there?
Now we can hear you.
Madhvi, can you hear me? Because my internet is unstable. Can you?
We
give
can
a
hear
vote of
you,
thanks?
Alka. Please go ahead. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, Aya, it had been a real pleasure to have you. I think the time is up, so I will not use too many words. But definitely, as Amadvi said and Father said, we would like to take this opportunity to extend our all support and cooperation if we could do something together, which I had mentioned you also in the earlier in the conversation that we are doing this round table on equal pay to equal pay for equal work. We'll be coming back to you, and I'm sure that we will have some very fruitful session for coming time. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you everyone joining. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
And I'll be back with more conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alka.
You're welcome, Father. My internet was not very stable today. There was something I could barely understand what was going on. Thank you, Madhvi, for joining. Madhvi, are you there?
Yeah, we could hear you very well. So it was loud and clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Attendance was not so good as we had expected, but the program was good. Thank you very
It was
much.
because because they're caught up in the placement. Many of them couldn't attend.
Yeah, I was
It was
told.
an intimate group. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.